Hey guys, welcome to my channel. So for today's video, I'm going to be talking about New York Fashion Week. So a brief history on certain pieces and also my favorite collections. Starting off with Sandy Liang. I really enjoy Sandy Liang's clothing. I think it's very well tailored. I think she uses nice fabrics, color palettes, and she is known for the coquette aesthetic, which I personally really enjoy. This season of spring 2025 ready to wear, I personally really enjoyed it. I saw it live on Instagram, and I thought the detail of the star light was very interesting and fun. um about the influences, starting off with the 60s, I feel like the collection was heavily inspired by the 60s with the sets, the mod dresses, and the suits. So to give you a little brief history about the suits, I have my notes here, so don't mind if I do. Just read. Although women's suits may not date back to the 2060s, 600s, the way men's do, they nevertheless have a colorful boundary-pushing history. By the 1960s, the suit was back in full force as an unprecedented 40% of women had joined the workforce. So in the collection, Sandy Liang uses blazer and skirt combo kind of suit. But in the 60s, it was also when women started wearing the blazer pant kind of combination, but they still wore like the skirt version. This decade saw many watershed moments in equality, with the Equal Pay in 1963 and the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The 60s also saw Andre Ku, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, mega introduction of the suit into elegant day and evening wear. Now, talking a little bit more about the sets and the skirts, never before in the history of fashion was the knee on show. Though fashion historians pinpoint 1964 as the year we got the mini, there were precursors. For example, Cristobal Balenciaga sack dress from 1970, 1957, 1958. So did Mary Quant invent the miniskirt as is often said? It's not as straightforward and simple as that. But it was a lace dress from the designer in 1964, and Quant's accessible price points that really caught on. Regardless, it took a couple of years before the style, which first just skimmed the flesh. I don't know what I wrote. Skim met the flesh above the knee was widely adopted. By the end of the decade, it was acceptable for styles to reach micro mini levels. So that's a little story on the mini skirt and the 60s suit. So I feel like it had a lot of heavily in 60s inspired inspiration, but there was also certain looks that reminded me of the 90s. For example, the button-up dresses reminded me of the 60s, but also reminded me of the 90s, because it was very popular, the use, for example, in grunge subcultures, with a flannel or a denim jacket and some Dr. Martin boots. So that and the oversized t-shirt and jeans look that was shown also really reminded me of the 90s. And a little nod to the 80s, there was a specific dress that reminded me of an 80s prom dress. Moving to another collection, let's talk about Kite or Kate. I don't know how to pronounce it. So there were oversized suits that reminded me of the 90s. There was a floral sheer piece, knit patterns, and a faux leather coat. So a brief history on the faux leather coat. I mean, I think it's a full leather coat. I don't know if it is. But a brief history on the leather coat. It was born in the early 2900s, with its origins found on military wear. By 1917, the U.S. Army Aviation Clothing Board created flight jackets for pilots. The term bomber jacket was coined. In 1928, Irving Scott introduced the leather jacket as a civilian fashion garment. Instead of using buttons, like in the military, he used a zipper for the front closure. And there was also the use of blazer in the show, blazers. So the origin of blazers, traditionally a thigh-length, double-breasted jacket. The brass buttons on the sleeves reflect the garment's origins in the late 19th century. British boating and cricketing culture. A middle child, the blazer is positioned between the formal suit jacket and the casual sports jacket. Worn without matching pants, the blazer is looser and less structured around the shoulder and chest rather than the suit jacket. Lots of neutrals and nudes were seen in the collection. Catherine Halston, the designer, she says that the style is changing, polished but edgy. She has connected with her warmer side, quoting, "I think I'm just feeling a little warmer these days. Maybe it's my son, all the warmth I get from him, but that's the mood coming into this." So that specifically was Kite. There were a lot of neutrals, blacks, whites, nudes, all of that. Moving forward, talking about Kim Shui. So her collection was inspired by Kint Suji. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. It was inspired by sculptures and the ancient Japanese practice of kintsugi, the philosophy of broken pottery that was repaired with golden resin coming back stronger. Quoting Kim Shui, "It's more resilient, and I like the idea of it being this unity, that something comes out more beautiful than before." Also seen in the collection were Ming era florals that date back to the 2000s and leather pieces that also are inspired by the 2000s. So, talking about Ming is a Japanese paper and design which began when the designer lived in Japantown in the neighborhood in San Francisco. Also talking about the shorts that were worn in the collection, Shui's signature short shorts stayed micro in the back but were given a modest 60s touch in the front with higher waists and romantic ruffle detailing. Moving on to PRI Cava, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. It really reminded me of the mermaid core aesthetic with the sequins and the knit. It was very beachy inspired. They had a lot of palm tree and beach prints on certain clothing. The sequins also reminded me of the 70s and the disco movement, but the sequence can be traced a little way back to King Tut, who was alive from 2341 to 1323 before Christ. The collection was inspired by summer, and the designer grew up in Italy. So that's a brief history on some of the pieces that were worn in the collections that I talked about. And now talking about my specific favorite collections of New York Fashion Week. So obviously the ones I mentioned, like Kim Shui, PRI Cava, Kite, and Sandy Liang, were some of my favorites. But I also really enjoyed Rag and Bones collection. Love Shack Fancy, it's a brand that I enjoyed for a really long time. I really like their pieces. Private Policy and Rio. That's it. So those were my favorites. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed my research. I hope you tune in for Fashion Week because I think it's really fun and it can give us a lot of inspiration. I can do a video talking about the trends on the runway if you guys want. That's also a lot of fun. I personally try not to follow trends, but I feel like trends, if not taken too seriously, can be a very interesting way of adding new things into your wardrobe and closet and dressing in a different way, and they give you inspiration. So I can talk about that. So this is my review and my brief history on New York Fashion Week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and let me know which was your favorite collection in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching.